सरस्वती माता पहले मैं सुमेरा सरस्वती माता बैठो कंठ हमारे मैं सुमेरा रागनी महारानी मैं सुमेरा रागनी महारानी। प्रिय मर फीजी गई है ना प्रिय मर फीजी गई है ना खोल फीजी में नौकरिया प्रिय मर फीजी गई है ना। जब मैं जन प्रिय वाला वाटी ना आई है घुमाए न लेती ना मैं घुमाए न लेती ना फीजी टापू से जहाजिया मैं घुमाए न लेती ना फीजी टापू से जहाजिया मैं घुमाए न लेती ना। कौन नगरिया तू छायो रे विदेशिया कौन नगरिया तू छायो रे विदेशिया।
Between 1838 and 1916, nearly 1 million people from India were transported by the British Raj to work on their sugarcane plantations in faraway countries like Mauritius, South Africa, Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago, Suriname and Fiji. Most of them were from Uttar Pradesh and adjacent Bihar. Despite little support and the harsh conditions they found themselves in, the Girmitia community grew, and today they form the largest overseas Indian community. Unlike their ancestors, today many descendants of Girmitias have resources to communicate with and to travel to India. Recently, Fiji's first Indo-Fijian woman senator, Mrs. Asha Singh, visited her paternal and maternal grandparents in India. Our documentary team traveled hundreds of miles with Asha Singh in Uttar Pradesh and discovered many fascinating things. We'd like to share some of these with you. So, let's begin this journey together.
ये काका है, मैं आशा हूँ, जयंत की छोटी बहन। वो सतीश तो आए थे, आप जानते हैं?
After an emotional meeting with Asha and the uncle, she was escorted to another part of the house where she met the rest of the family.
The story is slightly different here. That yes, we are Indians, our forefathers were Indians, but we are foreigners, we are born and brought up abroad, but we still want to go back to our country of our ancestors.
कहाँ है तो ये को ताल पर तार कभी रवा वही का देख कर
हमारे पुरखा भी बतावा करते हैं आए तो एक बार चिट्ठी आई है, एक बार चिट्ठी में लिखा रहा कि हम आ रहे हैं। तो मैं इसे कहते रहे कि हमें तो सेवा सरकार को कचरा के करना।
Both old and young were only too pleased to tell us about the men who had left their village some 100 years ago to settle in Guyana. We caught a night train and arrived in Gorakhpur. We were met by a tourist officer at the station.
कि आपका ऑफिस उधर भी है बलरामपुर में, जहाँ मेरा परिवार शायद होंगे, जो आप हम उधर ही पहुँचेंगे. So I think it has been a very successful tour for me personally and for Anju, and hopefully Asha के जो अभिलाषा थी.
We sped towards Asha's ancestral village. Our plan was to videograph our visit before sunset and find a hotel in Ayodhya for the night.
अच्छा आओ, हम धर्म फुआ लड़की है, समझ गया ना? धर्म फुआ यहाँ आइसरा, जेनू आइसरा, उमा मामा, मधु, जी, तो मैं धर्म की लड़की हूँ, फीजी से आया, क्या कहना?
Village Thakur, Dalip Singh, a close family friend of Asha's relatives, had different plans for us, and we ended up staying in the village for 2 days. That night, we were guests of honor at a large festival in the village.
फिजी पूरी तरह से हमनी के आदमी से भरल बटे, करम कोनो संदेह नहीं है. कुछ दिन पहले हमनी के महेंद्र चौधरी जी के घटना से काफी आहत भी भइली जा, काफी दुखी भी भइली जा. हम दीदी के भी बहुत धन्यवाद देत बानी कि आप जिंगाइल बानी, आके अपन समय दिले बानी. ऐसा हरैया के ऐसा माटी बाटी है भैया कि फीजी का अगर कोई दृष्टि जग के जिंगे भैल रहे तो फिर राम के रचना दे जिंगे से भैल, यही धरती से भैल, तो फिर ये हरैया के ये मनोहर नदी के तट के कोई का जोड़ कर सके. दीदी फीजी से यहाँ आयल बानी, वहाँ के सांसद बनी, मेंबर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट वहाँ के गाँव बाटी यहाँ दिवाकरपुर में बस्ती में आयल बनी. आपकी तरफ से 1000 रुपया के पुरस्कार हमने खातिर हमारे टीम खातिर दीदी के
After an emotional meeting, we stopped over in Ayodhya, and Dalip Singh enlightened us on its history.
बस्ती के लिए गोरखपुर के लिए चला गया. अब ये इस साइड का ये है, इधर से सरयू नदी का पानी राम की पैड़ी में होते हुए सीधे इस साइड में निकल गया.
We arrived in Balrampur late in the evening, and Dalip Singh quickly arranged a press conference for us. The 4 journalists took upon themselves to trace my grandmother's village.
मतलब आपका पैतृक स्थान जो करौला और बलरामपुर क्षेत्र में आप जिसके ढूंढ रहे हैं, उसमें हमारे प्रेस वाले सब मदद करेंगे.
That was the end of our grand journey through the land of our ancestors. The story of our visit to Balrampur appeared in the local newspaper. As a result, a local doctor contacted one of the newspapers with information about my paper. The journalist emailed me his contact details, and I have been in regular contact with him since then. Plans to visit my grandmother's village is underway.
In Gonda, it was decided that we would head straight for Balrampur to get information about Satish Rai's grandmother. At least he had some positive information about his relatives, having spoken several times from Sydney to a person who claimed to have met his relatives. The team made their way to Balrampur. Noticing fields of sugarcane plantations around us and cane being transported to nearby sugar mills, it was pointed out that one of the reasons the colonial governments targeted this region to recruit the Girmitians was because they had experience in sugarcane farming. Upon reaching Balrampur Tourist Hotel, Satish was given a piece of information about his impending relatives, which took much of the pent-up excitement he had regarding meeting them. This news made him recall the visit he made to Karoli in Rajasthan in search of another person's roots just 2 days ago. We were informed that after Narayan and his second son, Hanuman's death, their home fell into ruins and remains the same. Her family did not have sufficient funds even to construct another house there. They hope that their relatives in Fiji will return to Futokot to claim the land. Back in Balrampur, Satish Rai imagined a prospect of similar disappointment about his family, which they were on the way to meet. He was informed the previous evening that his family in Shridat Ganj, some 17 kilometers from Balrampur, were Muslims, but who still carried the surname Rai. He was disappointed that as his grandmother was a Hindu, she could not be related to a Muslim, and therefore even his fourth trip to India may turn out to be a personal disappointment. However, he decided to pursue the lead and arrived in Shridat Ganj. Upon his arrival in Shridat Ganj, he was introduced to his 94-year-old uncle, Dhoke Rai, and his cousins, Naim, Nisar, and Lalla Rai. After introductions, they escorted the team to their village home where, according to them, Satish Rai's grandmother, Gokul Dei, was born and bred. As the story of the family unfolded before us, it became quite clear that these were the blood relatives of Gokul Dei and hence blood relatives of Satish Rai. The family were royal poets in the palace of Maharaja of Balrampur. The family were given several hundred acres of land by the Maharaja for their service, and the title Kaviraj, which the family still use. Dhoke Rai's father and Gokul Dei's cousin was the last royal poet, and Dhoke Rai still gets royal pension of 25 rupees each month from the palace. The family, however, lost their land to the Indian government after independence, but Naim pointed out that his family can still harvest fruits from mango trees planted by his ancestors along the borders of the land once belonging to his family. After Dhoke uncle recited some of poetries he learned from his father, we made our way to Balrampur Royal Palace. After stating the purpose of our visit, we were introduced to the Crown Prince, who remembers Hetai Rai as Kaviraj of his palace. He gladly escorted our team around the royal grounds and posed for our cameras. Satish Rai was quite emotional, standing on the royal ground where his ancestors once held important position of royal poets.
उमा राय उलिदीन राय से हितई राय यही राजकवि थे। महाराजा के वहाँ कवि सुनाया करते थे और महाराजा से कई गांव इनाम में मिला। और ये हितई राय के ज़माने में, राजा पृथ्वीराज सिंह के ज़माने में, इनको मतलब जो महीना वाइज से भत्ता भी मिलता था। बहुत पुराना संबंध है।
Milap, the land of the South Indian Girmitias, is Satish Rai's third film of the Milap trilogy, the other two being Milap, Discover Your Indian Roots, and Milap, The Royal Discovery.
Satish Rai, your first two Milap films, in about Fiji's northern Indian Girmitias. This film, which is a departure from the first two, what make you make this film?
Well, Chandi, approximately 20% of Fiji's Girmitias are from south, and little research has been done on them so far. And when I was in Fiji doing the seminars in 2003, a lot of people from South India wanted to know about their ancestry in Fiji. It was then I decided that my next film on Milap is going to be on South Indian Girmitias.
Sugarcane fields and the large sugar mill suggested that this area was targeted by the recruiters because the Girmitias' familiarity with sugar industry.
What were your thoughts after this visit?
Chandi, there were so many thoughts coming to my mind when I saw this naturally beautiful place. I had read about the holy Krishna river during my childhood, never ever thinking that one day I would actually see it. The beautiful temples, beautiful city, and the lush vegetation made me think, why would anyone willingly leave this place and never return? Why leave this place which had everything a person would want in life and go willingly to break your back in a country that had none? Doesn't make sense to me.
This trip to the land of Fiji's South Indian Girmitias provided Satish with so many answers, but at the same time raised many more. His research on Fiji Girmitias continues as part of his Doctor in Creative Arts degree course.
पीछे लक्ष्मण भाई आगे आगे राम चलत है पीछे लक्ष्मण भाई आगे आगे राम चलत है पीछे लक्ष्मण भाई.
Many years ago as a child, I used to sing Ramayana in this Ramla Kuti, which is situated in this beautiful village. This village of Natambua was my home for first 18 years before I moved away to Suva, the capital of Fiji, and then to London. At that time, I was vaguely aware that my ancestors had arrived in Fiji from India, a land far, far away, only to be read on the pages of Ramayana or later on imagined from the scenes of the Bollywood films. Many years later, when I found myself in exile in London, I began searching for my identity. And during that search for my roots, I found out that my grandparents, who just lived across the road from here, were brought to Fiji by the British to work on the sugarcane plantations. From my exile in London and then in Australia, I began researching on Fiji Girmitias since 1994. Today, 20 years after my exile in London, and 30 years after I left this village of Natambua, I once again stand on the grounds of the Ramlila Kuti. It was here that I first learnt of the exile of Lord Rama. Now living in exile myself, I begin a documentary that explores the exile of my grandparents and 35,000 other Girmitias. Unlike the exile of Lord Rama, who returned home after 14 years, I believed these Girmitias were permanently exiled here. Let's find out how did that happen.
I see Girmit as a site of inspiring history. to look at the experience of these humble people who began with nothing, and yet, despite all the difficulties, all the impediments they encountered, they made something of themselves. And I think that is a matter, or should be a matter, of great pride to all the descendants.
पर बचन न जाए